right, guys, welcome back to another video. As you can see, I'm in a little bit of a different location. I'm out of my main spot right now for a couple of days, just taking a little bit of a break, but I still wanted to bring you guys the news that happened yesterday, which is the CMA and Xbox and Activision went to the Competition and Markets Tribunal to discuss how the appeals process is going to be going forward. As we know, Microsoft has appealed the decision from the CMA to go ahead and block the Activision Blizzard acquisition, citing multiple different grounds. I believe it was 5 grounds that they cited as to why they believe that this deal, the decision made by the CMA, was irrational. And the main thing that I do focus on here is cloud gaming. And then they had their opening meeting here with the justice at the CMA, and they really went back and forth explaining why they believe that the decision was wrong in this case. And the main goal of this meeting today, I believe, was to set a trial date going forward. And the consensus overall, basically, if you're going online, you're going on Twitter, you're going people who were watching the live stream and analyzing it all, is that Microsoft's lawyers pretty much destroyed and made the CMA lawyers look pretty bad, and that they actually got what they were looking for, which was a trial date sooner rather than later. So by the end of July is when this trial is going to be going through, whereas the CMA wanted to push the trial to the fall. But we have this interesting article here from Tweaktown, and that is more information on things that were actually said within this meeting, transcripts and accusations from Microsoft's side against the CMA in terms of how they actually went about in making their decision to block this deal. It says here that today, lawyers for Activision, Microsoft, and the CMA met with Competition Appeals Tribunal Justice Marcus Smith to discuss how to best proceed with the appeals process. While Microsoft's full 400-page appeal will not be made public, the tribunal did publish an application summary that condenses the main points. At the hearing, Activision legal counsel delivered key reasons on why it seeks to intervene in the case. Activision has a stake in the outcome of the merger and can provide relevant information in regards to cloud gaming and the games market as a whole. So it is likely to be able to intervene and add evidence to Microsoft's case. And one of the things here that, as we know, was a big point for the CMA to block this deal. One of the things they said was that Activision can go ahead and put their games into cloud gaming with or without Microsoft. If this deal doesn't go through, they can still go do that. But you got to ask yourself, why would they do that when they haven't, up until now, they haven't even made their games available on multiple different streaming platforms. The bring your own game stream platforms that Microsoft has made a 10-year deal with, Activision games weren't there. Why would they go and do that when, especially things like Call of Duty are the #1 games that sell every single year? They're making money like crazy. There's no point in them in actually doing stuff like that and opening up their access by putting their games onto cloud gaming. And Xbox, Microsoft, if this deal does go through, it just provides more access overall to more gamers for getting to play more games. And Activision said this, which is, they're just point blank here. They say, Activision would not have put its games on cloud services. That's our position. That's our case. Now, if that's right, there is no competition issue, and the CMA decision, which rejected our case on that point, cannot stand. So they're just outright rejecting the CMA's assertion that they would have gone ahead and put their games onto cloud gaming. And that's one way that they can pretty much kill a huge point that the CMA had in order to go ahead and block this deal. Now, there is this section here where it's the actual transcript of some of the stuff that they say, and it says the Activision lawyer alleges that the Competition and Markets Authority independent panel had only spent about 4 weeks focusing on potential substantial lessening of competition in cloud gaming. And it's 4 weeks out of 32 weeks they spent on this case. They spent 4 weeks, and that was the main reason why they blocked this deal. So a small percentage of time was actually looked at in terms of cloud gaming. Will it reduce competition? Will it hurt other up and coming companies that are trying to compete in the cloud gaming market? And not only has Microsoft and Xbox come out and said that the decision that they would hurt competition is irrational, you've had other small companies like Boosteroid put out statements saying that they disagreed with the decision from the CMA. And here is what the Activision lawyers actually say that. See, the vast majority of the time taken by the CMA in the 32 weeks it's been investigating, 28 weeks were devoted to their first concern that there has been or would be some anti-competitive conduct and result if this merger would be permitted in the respect of the console market. And that is hilarious to think about, because they spent the majority of their time saying that if Xbox gets Activision Blizzard, they're going to be able to go out there and try to foreclose their main competition, which is PlayStation, in the high-end console market, a definition that was created by everyone else but Xbox, Microsoft. And then they came to the conclusion that that would make absolutely no sense. So they spent that much time looking at that one thing and realized that their numbers were off. There's no way that this would actually affect Sony in the way that they would have to close down, that they would still be able to compete. And they got rid of that as a point to try to block this deal. Clearly, because of that, realizing that, they went and pivoted and focused more on cloud gaming. And it continues here and says the back end of the 32 weeks dealt with the cloud story. Of course, at the end of the day, contrary to many expectations, they decided the console side of the story was okay. There was no problem there. And so at that end of the day, the reason why we've lost is because of their views in relation to the console story. One of the aspects of the console bit of the debate was the foreclosure argument that was rejected. And so you have it one at the same time, that conclusion. Well, we don't think there's going to be a valid foreclosure argument in relation to the console story, but we do think that there will be foreclosures, or a likelihood of that outcome of foreclosure in respect to these competitors not being able to access these Activision games in respect to the cloud, which again, Microsoft has made those 10-year deals. They've come out and pretty much said anybody who wants that 10-year royalty-free license to Call of Duty games, Activision games, and honestly, probably all of their Xbox Game Studio games at this point, because we're seeing them put more of their Xbox Game Studio games into cloud gaming services. We saw it with the NVIDIA GeForce Now announcement and putting out the Xbox Wire article. Then we saw it with Boosteroid and more Xbox first-party games going onto that service. I have a feeling they're willing to give all their games out to any cloud gaming services, because it's a win-win. It's a win for the cloud gaming providers. It's a win for Microsoft, and it increases access and continues with their plan to try to get into pretty much everybody's home, no matter what device that they are on. Continues here and says, on the face of it, that is a remarkable pair of conclusions. They are diametrically opposite of each other, and one wonders what the purpose of that would be and why anybody would behave in that way, given that finding the other way that we know about. It also flatly inconsistently with the decision reached by the European Commission, who take a completely different view on what is meant by the market and whether or not there's any validity in the proposition that there would be foreclosure in relation to cloud streaming. So they bring up all of this stuff, and I mean, pretty much calling them out, saying that they made a wrong decision on the cloud gaming market as a reason to block this deal. Now, there was some other stuff here that was pretty interesting, kind of wanted to go over here. This is here from Tom Warren on Twitter, and it says, Microsoft's skeleton argument for today's case management conference also shows it isn't happy about the CMA's lack of disclosures, particularly around any related to the discussions it may have had with the FTC, EU, and other regulators. And that was a big thing leading up or after the CMA decision, where Bobby Kotick, I believe he was on MSNBC talking about the decision and saying that, hey, they met with the FTC about a week before they made their decision. We don't know what they talked about, but I mean, you could probably come to the conclusion that there was some discussion about this acquisition, the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition, and the CMA came out after and said there was no discussion about that at all. We'll never know. I mean, these are all speculation. We will never know the truth about this. If they talked about it, we'll never actually know about that. That's unless there's an insider, a whistleblower, somebody or something, if they did talk about it and they want to sell, but we'll probably never know about that. And it's the same thing when we think about the news that came out the other day that I made a video about, looking at the CMA and people on the CMA board previously working for law firms that represented Sony and Google and all these types of things, and people thinking that there may be some sort of collusion there to block this deal. Again, there's no evidence of any of that. This is all just speculation, but it gets you thinking that maybe there is more to the story as to why they wanted to go ahead and block this deal. And this is specifically what this part says here. It says, as set out in correspondence, Microsoft considers that the manner in which the CMA has provided material in relation to the decision is inadequate. Microsoft has reportedly sought disclosure, in particular of third-party submissions to the CMA and of communications between the CMA and foreign regulators. It was incumbent on the CMA to disclose any important elements feeding into its decision-making, but despite Microsoft's repeated requests, it has not done so to date. It is an indictment of the CMA process that Microsoft has seen more by the way of third-party submission to the CMA through the EU Commission access to file process that it has been disclosed by the CMA itself. So they are trying to get some information here from the CMA about third-party submissions and communications between the CMA and foreign regulators. And obviously they aren't being as open as the EU has been. And then finally here, Lulu Chang-Meservey, as we know, always is giving us some interesting things to talk about on social media whenever she tweets out. Very outspoken. She says, the world's most formidable gaming companies are based in Asia, and yet their home countries are allowing American companies to compete on a fair playing ground, while regulators elsewhere seem to be helping market leaders enshrine their dominance. With its unconditional approval for our merger with Microsoft, South Korea has joined dozens of other countries, including China and Japan, in welcoming more competition and consumer benefits in the growing gaming industry. And she's calling out directly here that yesterday as well, South Korea went ahead and approved the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition unconditionally. And it's just another country added to the list. I believe that is 39 countries as of right now that have actually gone ahead and approved this deal. And when it comes again to the CMA, to the appeals process, the trial is going to take place at the end of July, just before the FTC stuff comes about, where they're going to be going to trial there. As we know, the FTC has sued to block this deal. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. All this stuff is getting more and more interesting, and it's getting closer and closer to, I guess, more of a definitive end, as we're going to see if Microsoft can win this appeal by the end of July, and then what's going to happen with the FTC if they go to court, or if they come to a deal before that, all that type of stuff. And again, if it does go to court, especially with the FTC, we may see some very interesting documents if they do become public in terms of third-party deals and exclusive deals and all of that type of stuff. But I'm going to end the video there, guys. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.